I'm going to follow the European Super League and fail. People are always surprised to know that I have stuffs. I've explained before that as an adventure traveler, the stuffs that I buy are more souvenir memory prompts. Stuff in and of itself is just whatever to me. I'm collecting experiences, knowledge, other things that maybe lack material matter but have intrinsic value. Am I a football fan? So. But Manchester United is a team that meant something to me when I was younger because of David Beckham. Bex is my favorite player of all time. I even wrote a couple essays about his red card in the World Cup when I was a teenager. And they've been my team, they were my team, so when I explored the United Kingdom on our circuit tour around that couple of separate areas, including England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales, of which I only visited 3. They stopped in Manchester, and we visited Old Trafford. I think that's what it is. I had a keen sense that business works differently than what you think when I entered and realized that Bex is nowhere to be seen in the souvenir store. So while I was thinking that maybe I could buy something Bex related, they had nothing in there. That's because he's smart. He took his images and rights and negotiated them himself, I think, something to that effect. And he did that for money and to protect himself, his legacy, his estate. I waited a long time before I switched allegiance from Team England to Team France in 2018. 2018 was a milestone year for me where I attempted the most adventurous circuit ever, 37 countries in 7 months, including intense bush camping through 13 countries in Africa. While I was doing all this, the World Cup was going on, and sometimes I just needed a reprieve from all that hardcore adventuring, because it does take a toll. As much as it is and is still my dream life, I think people mistake what life is. Dream life still comes with cons and struggles. In this type of world that we live in, a world of suffering, there is no such thing as a dream without all of those other negatives that come along with it. There's just no such thing. That's literally the law of physics, chemistry, biology, insofar as we can actually interpret it, as opposed to them just being things that happen. I have 2 minds about this. On better days, I can realize that the world just functions as it does because of the laws of physics, chemistry, and biology. Okay? You can be sad that a hyena tore up an antelope on the plains of Masai Mara in front of your eyes, with the sensory experiencing so overwhelming that you can smell and even taste the blood in your throat. But then you realize something important. This is just something that happened because of the way the world is factually, according to science. Hyenas need to eat to survive. Lions need to eat to survive. Even those antelope need to eat to survive. The way that the world is ordered is that this animal eats that animal in the natural world. To a certain extent, I've often had this debate with myself about becoming vegetarian because I think I have a choice. Science has provided me and everyone else the opportunity to choose differently. Hyenas only eat instinctually the way they do. They have no morality associated with it, or at least none that would cause them to innovate something different to eat to avoid suffering to the antelope. But we have that questionable ability, and I've gone back and forth about that. But in any case, yes, I switched allegiance to France because I'm easily bought by hot players. And at the time, Olivier Giroud and Antoine Griezmann were, I think, the hottest players playing in the World Cup. They both happen to represent France. And France is technically one of the bastard son founders of Canada, so I'm okay switching allegiance to France. I never even really follow the Premier League or any of the inner goings in between World Cups. I'm just a fair weather fan because I follow many, many sports. You've heard me talk about mixed martial arts, UFC, this, that, and the other. I think I've mentioned basketball every once in a while. I'm just all over the place. But I found it interesting because people are debating European Super League on one of the podcasts that I follow, Flagrant 2, with comedian Andrew Schultz, Marky Gagnon, and the other Akash Singh. I like the podcast because they take otherwise dull topics and have a different analytical spin on them. And the European Super League was something that came out of obscurity like Game Stonk and just took people by surprise because I think we're all in an altered state right now. Our minds, all of us, every single one of us in the world is in an altered state right now. The pandemic has thrown us for a loop and we're still trying to figure out, what does this mean? I think I know the answer for myself, and I always have. The pandemic just showed the true nature of this earth. Okay? Just as hyenas eat antelopes, it's the nature of the earth. Viruses, bacteria multiply. We think as humans we have the sole right to live on this earth, live out our dreams, do what we want to do, but nature has other things intended because there are natural disasters, there are pandemics. And I think you best factor that in before you think about whether you want to procreate on this earth, because I feel a lot less compassion for people who knowingly choose to spawn on this kind of suffering earth and then just complain about it the rest of their lives. There's a way out, you know. The way out is stopping that cycle. The way out is just stopping that cycle. And I know part of me stating this is like trying to look a hyena in the face and tell them, innovate some new things to eat so you can avoid suffering onto that antelope. But I'll just do it anyways because I know that there are people who have reached out to me because I'm such an open, honest communicator about this concept. They know that they can trust that I just straight shoot about it. I've no vested interest in creating some sort of illusion for people. If anything, my situation has actually helped a lot of people who've been stuck and suffering about it. I've already mentioned that I've had a really down and dirty but authentic conversation with my parents and how I feel about them bringing me into this world against my will. And it is what it is. I can smile about it, I can laugh about it, because I think once you free yourself from having to live a lie, that you actually truly can maximize even on this suffering earth. So yes, as much as this is suffering earth, I think I've done about the best job that I can possibly do to optimize myself in such constraints. And that's the name of the game for me. It's just about making the best of shit and of a shitty situation. So before I ramble onwards out of control, I'm going to dance. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to explain what I'm thinking, because part of living the suffering life is that even if you know what makes you happy and what's best for you, you can always feel resistance. I've mentioned Joe Rogan, mixed martial artist and podcaster, a number of times. I'll add in people like GSP, George St. Pierre, and others. So many prolific people who are open and honest about their experience have communicated in detail how, as much as you can have passion, as much as you can really love what you're doing, maybe even every single day, you're going to have difficulty executing. Today is one of these difficult days in executing. Even though the song I picked is slower in pace, for some reason there's just something I was missing today. And even though I'm going to be performing, I'm still missing something. Something's missing in this piece in particular, but I'm just going to go forward so that I can clear the mental real estate of this performance out of my brain and move on to something new. That's the way I do art. I think it's important to actually be open about this artistic process, because otherwise people would be always thinking, oh, how come I never feel this perfect way, that perfect way in creating? That's because I think there's a biological challenge. For here, you're gonna have to follow Dr. Andrew Huberman, neuroscientist. He's probably been the best at explaining all this shit and why, even if you know things are good for you from history, even though you actually have a passion for something like creating art, you're gonna struggle. That's actually part of the process. Another person who synthesizes all these expert scientists' information into an applicable manner is Tom Bilyeu of Impact Theory. So there's a couple of sources. I'm gonna push through the dancing because I wanna do my 3 passes. part of the reason why that's a struggle is also because Drake is, he's Canadian, so I'll probably never hate him. There's my tribalism showing. But I think he's a bitchy little twerp with his lyrics. All he ever does is blah blah whine about his love life. Or at least the songs that I've heard. Like, I better find your love, and I like the song, but then when you hear the lyrics, he just sounds like a whiny bitchy little twit. Especially like, Kiki, are you riding? Are you blah blah? It's like, get over yourself. Okay, so she's riding and it ain't you. There, your answer is, get on with it. But, I mean, to be fair, artists use art to resolve through the problems that they're feeling at the time, and for whatever reason, Drake's always having these love problems, so he's either boasting about his bills, and his money, which he has a lot of, but somehow all of that money has been, I guess, essentially wasted because he's always whining about all the other aspects of his life that are out of whack. Now here, I'm gonna seem like a hypocrite because when I danced to Monster by Shawn Mendes and Justin Bieber, I defended them. That, recalling to even the beginning of the theme of this podcast, life is suffering writ large for everyone, including Drake and all these rich people, all the way up to Jeff Bezos. But why am I picking on Drake? He's just a human too. I think the reason why is there's something about the way he deals with it that's just to me. Some reason. Even though him, Shawn Mendes, and Justin Bieber maybe are essentially gravitating around the same topic, the way they do it, I just feel it's different. It speaks to me better. Drake's essentially doing the same thing, but it speaks to me less. And this is where I've just disclosed and shown to you how humans are fucked up. You think, you hope they're consistent and logical. If I were being such, I would apply my standards across the board to all of them. Either I hate all three of them, or I respect all three of them. But for some reason, I respect two of them, and one of them is just whiny, bitchy little twit to me. But it is what it is. I think sometimes there are just going to be certain human beings you like, from a biological level. There's just going to be some certain human beings that you just maybe lack that biological level. And it is what it is. But I like this song in particular. Is it even about that stuff? I don't know. Or maybe I'm even buying into the stereotype. What makes those other two different is that they're more pop artists, and in some ways you expect them to deal with that wow blah blah whiny love topic, but Drake straddles between a gangster rapper and whatever else he might be, pop artist. So in some ways maybe I'm just stereotyping, and there we go. So what I just did live is explain how a person like me who tries their best to be consistent and hypocritical would even just be it obviously, though I've identified it, because we're just messed up that way. And that calls back to my question of the suffering happens regardless of whether you actively try to correct it, because it's just part of the world, part of biology, part of physics, part of chemistry. And if you decide that you want to continue this cycle of life, just know what you're getting yourself into, and that's it. And I myself have worked on different ways to communicate how I feel, because I think too few people straight shoot about how they feel, because they might be labeled with the dreaded S word, suicidal. That's where people are just too categorically broad with how they categorize people. And even if so, the S word is a realistic word that people have yet to deal with why. So why are people doing it? And instead of just, oh, life is worth living and perpetuating that platitude. We gotta get fucking real about whether it really is. And as soon as you remove the automatic assumption that it is, then you can have some real conversations. And the problem is, there's just no way writ large society is ever going to do that, because I think that, again, according to biology, that procreative element is so baked in. I think it'll take a long time. But my hope is, I'm actually just speaking to the fringe element, the people that I know are maybe on the fence about this issue, because I know in my real life, and I know even through this YouTube channel, I've had impact on those people who maybe lack that inner self-confidence to know exactly what they want and to go boldly in the direction that they know is right, which is for them being single. So I am gonna wave that flag, because we've got too many motherfuckers like Drake with his dumb lyrics crying over bitches and porn stars and whatever the hell he cries over. I mean, it's done. It's over. If you want to go listen to him whine, you can go listen to him whine. Or if you want to go listen to the other guys that I respect a little more, like Shawn Mendes and Justin Bieber, you can go listen to them as well. But I think there's a new niche. There's a niche for people who are single and about as happy as they can be. And I think those people actually have to, in some ways, lead by example if they want to. Because I've had some conversations with some fellow antinatalists. Antinatalists are people who are at least morally against the idea of procreating by anybody, okay? You can call me an equal opportunities eugenicist, because I think nobody should procreate. So there we go. I'm equal opportunity to everybody. Nobody should. That's it, okay? And I've had some debates with fellow antinatalists about how out in the open I am about my ideas, and I just have always liked to communicate about it, and people have gravitated towards me for whatever reason. I think I have a disproportionate number of people who agree with me. For as niche as this idea is supposed to be, I've always attracted a number of people that agree with me, including people in my own family, friends, and others who have known me for so long and have heard me debate these ideas for so long that I guess in some ways I've convinced them. So it is what it is. I'll do my final two passes of whiny bitchy Drake's song. Maybe I'm mean in blaming Drake. I should just blame my lack of muse. As much as Drake himself is, in my mind, a whiny bitchy little baby, that's got nothing to do with whether I should have been able to inspire myself to choreograph this song. Because I actually like the song a lot. I actually like a couple of his songs a lot. Even some of those whiny baby songs like Find Your Love. Is that what it's called? I better find your love and I better find your heart. I better find your love and I better find your heart. I better find your love and I better find your heart. I better find it, oh my love, and nothing's gonna tear us apart. See, so I like him enough that I know some of his lyrics. Watch me. Inconsistent, back around on myself, be a hypocrite, and this is fun. And I like to call myself out that way because I think it's what reminds me what we're all like. And then it also reminds me to keep it cool when people do it to me. I've got a family member, my mom in particular, where I just fucking hit the roof when she does exactly the same shit. But then I have to remind myself, us humans are limited. We're flawed. We're shitty. And I'm included in that pot. I'm also something called human, and I suffer from the same things. We'll end off back to the European Super League and something that I seem to do relatively well, which is sympathize with multi-billionaires. Why would I do this? This is like something contributing to the breakup of society in some people's eyes, because they think that what the rich have done really well is pitted basically poor people against other poor people. And I agree with that. But I think the larger picture of what's going on here when I sympathize with rich people is that that's my reminder to people where when they make up that excuse of, well, I mean, there are some lives that are good, I'll roll the dice, maybe my kids will live that life. I'm just going to remind them that life doesn't exist. It doesn't exist because Bezos, Drake, all of them, they've proven it. Okay? Now, at the very least, if you're going to continue this procreative cycle, you have to know what you're doing. And what you're doing is you're taking a huge gamble. And I think that the numbers are far less in your favor than you think. So that's why when rich people cry and complain, as much as I might call them a whiny little bitch, I do listen, because I think they're doing you a huge favor. If you part all of the subterfuge about bitches and hoes and cash and cars, you'll notice that there's an underlying suffering that even the richest people in the world experience. So if you hear that lesson, you hear it loud and clear. Otherwise, you can continue to delude yourself.